In this video, we are going to learn about the greatest common factor. So a factor is a number that multiplies to get to a product. So I like to think of factor as a factor times by another factor will get us to be the product, okay, of whatever given number we're talking about. So as we've done in another example, if we had a product of 12, well, we have different combinations that we can do. We can have a factor of 2 times a factor of 6 get us 12. We can do a factor of 3 times a factor of 4 will get us 12. And a factor of 1 and a factor of 12 will also get us 12. Okay? Prime factorization is one method to find the greatest common factor, which we're going to see today. And so the prime factorization, as we mentioned in the last lesson, it's the multiplication of primes. Okay? And what prime factorization looks like is this. It looks like 2 times 2 times 3. And that's actually the prime factorization of 12. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. And what the prime factorization is the multiplication of prime numbers. So what prime number times what prime number times what prime number gets us 12. And that's the only combination. Okay? And the greatest common factor has to be between two different numbers. So if I had the number, 12 and 30. We want to know which factor of 12 and 30, that's the same, is the biggest one. Which is the biggest factor that they have in common? So I know that 2 goes into 12 and 30, but is that the biggest one? Maybe not. Does 3 go into 12 and 30? Yes, but is it the biggest one? Maybe not. 4 only goes into 12, not 30. 5 doesn't go into either. 6 goes into 12 and 30, but is it the biggest one? So we want to find a method. We have 2 methods to do this, and we are going to discuss the 2 different methods. The first method is by listing the factors, and the second method, we're going to do the same question twice, is by using the prime factorization. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is list the factors for 12 and list the factors of 42. And we're going to see which one they have that's the biggest. So the factors for 12. We need to use, this will help us out with our divisibility rules. Well, I know 1 goes into 12. And I know it's even, so I know 2 as well. And we actually just did the factors up at top. I know 3 times 4 gives me 12, so I'll put 3 and I'll put 4. And I like to look at these and do these little arcs. So I know 3 times 4 gives me 12. 2 times what gives me 12? Well, 6. And 1 times what gives me 12, which is 12. So I know I have them all. It's a good way to test that you have them all. I'm going to erase my lines. All right, and then 42, we're going to do the same thing. Well, I know 1, and I know 2 because it's even. 3. How do I know if 3 goes into 42? Well, we have our divisibility rules. 4 plus 2 is 6. If we add our digits and see if that's divisible by 3, 6 is divisible by 3, so is 42. I know not 4 because 40 is divisible by 4, and 42 wouldn't because it's only 2 more. So not 4, not 5, 6. Well, my rule is if it's divisible by 2 and 3, that it's divisible by 6. So 6 is. And 6 times what gives me 42? Well, 6 times 7, so 7 has to be a factor. And that's where I'm going to start my arc. 6 times 7 gives me 42. 3 times 14 gives me 42. 2 times 21 gives me 42. And 1 times 42 gives me 42. And that kind of ensures that I don't forget any. Okay? They all have a partner unless it's a perfect square. All right, so which ones do they have in common? So they have 1 in common. They have 2 in common. They have 3 in common. They have 6 in common. And that is the biggest one that they have in common. So the greatest common factor is 6. Now, the problem that this method poses is, what if I forgot 6 and 42? What if I didn't remember that 6 times 7 was 42 and I forgot both of those numbers? Then I'm not going to get the greatest common factor. So the method that I like better is using the prime factorization. Also, I kind of think it's fun to do the factor trees. So 12, we're going to break down 12 and we're going to break down 42. And I'm going to show you how we're going to use the prime factorization to get the greatest common factor. So 12. 12 breaks down into 4 times 3, and 3 is prime. I'm going to just draw a line here. And 4 breaks down into 2 and 2 is prime. Okay? So 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. Okay? And now we need the prime factorization for 42. Well, I know 6 times 7, so I'm going to use it. 6 times 7, and 7 is prime. For 6, we have 3 and 2 is prime, and 3 is prime. So for 42, we have 2 times 3 times 7. Now, for the greatest common factor, what we're going to do is we're going to use all the ones that they have in common. So for greatest common factor, they have a 2 in common, a factor of 2, meaning multiplication. So they have 2 in common, and they have 3 in common. So we're going to bring each one down into our greatest common factor, and we're going to multiply them. Our greatest common factor is 2 times 3, which is 6. So you'll see here that we got the same answer. We got 6. Now, I like the prime factorization because as long as you write each thing, then as long as you write each thing down into our greatest common factor, you'll get the right answer, okay? And you don't have to think about, like, did I forget something?